So welcome back friends to another episode of DRC classes, and today we will be doing Julius Caesar's Act 3 Scene 2 as per the ICSE Class 10 syllabus. Previously we have done Act 3 Scene 1. Now if you want that video you can search it in my channel. Now let us start. So first we will talk about the scene setting. So the scene is taking place at the Forum in Rome where Caesar's funeral is taking place. Now Caesar's assassination took place in the previous scene, so here the senators or the assassins gathered with the body of Caesar, and along with them was Mark Antony, and they were about to give their speech in memory of Caesar. Now the importance of this scene is that it shows the power of the rhetoric and marks the beginning of the civil unrest. So this is the second phase of this play where the civil unrest starts and it seals the fate of the conspirators and the assassins. So let's start with the detailed summary of the scene. At first, Brutus addresses the Roman citizens. He explains that Caesar was killed not because he loved him less, but because he loved Rome more. Now from these complex sentences we can understand that Brutus was an educated person, he was a really learned person, but he did not have the skill to talk to the common citizen. His sentences, his speech was really of high standard, which was not that legible for the common people of Rome. See, here he says that Caesar was killed not because Brutus loved Caesar less, but Brutus loved Rome more. He calls Caesar ambitious and says ambition would have enslaved the Romans. The crowd is convinced and supports Brutus. So initially the crowd understands Brutus and feels like he was in favor of Roman citizens. So they cheer Brutus and they support him. Antony speaks then. He begins diplomatically saying he has come to beauty Caesar and not to praise him. He repeatedly calls Brutus and the conspirators honorable men, but slowly uses irony to turn the crowd against them. Now, as we have discussed in the previous scene as well, and we will be discussing later, that Antony has the gift of gab. He can speak and he can manipulate people at ease. He was a shrewd politician and he could easily manipulate the minds of the Roman citizen. So he starts diplomatically. He starts as he was told by the conspirators that he could not praise Caesar. So he did not do that. But repeatedly he uses irony and uses the word honorable men for Brutus and conspirators, thus enraging the crowd against these conspirators, and they turned against them and in favor of Caesar. He presents three very powerful arguments. Number one, he says that Caesar refused the crown 3 times. Number two, he says Caesar brought wealth to Rome. And finally he says Caesar cared for the poor. Now these 3 points were the catalyst that changed the entire perspective of the citizens of Rome. They started believing that it was Caesar who was their biggest well-wisher, and the conspirators did an extreme disservice to the people of Rome by killing such an honorable man, such a great leader, Caesar. Antony then shows Caesar's wounded body and reads his will, which leaves money and public parks to the Roman citizens. Now this was a masterstroke, as Antony now tried to gain the sympathy of the Roman citizens by showing the generosity and the kindness of Caesar. The crowd became furious and riots against the conspirators were started. Okay, so the crowd was now completely in favor of Caesar and they felt like they have been betrayed by the conspirators. The scene ends with chaos spreading through Rome. So finally, at the end of this scene, the conspirators were totally alienated from the crowd and they started spreading chaos throughout Rome. Now let us look at the significance of the scene. This is the turning point after Caesar's death. As I stated at the beginning, that this is the turning point, or this is the point from where the play takes a different approach. It demonstrates the rhetoric as a weapon. Now, the rhetoric used by Antony was weaponized against Brutus and the other conspirators. It also shows Brutus' political weakness. Brutus was a righteous man. He was completely honest about his deed and he was a real patriot. But he was naive. He could not fathom the error that he had made by leaving Antony alive. He also made an error in allowing Antony to speak to the crowd, which was warned against by Cassius. Yet his naivety caused the entire Rome to be against him and the conspirators. It also establishes Antony as a brilliant orator. Now his speech was the primary reason for the Romans to turn against the conspirators and Brutus. He single-handedly brought the sympathy of the Romans for the dead Caesar. And finally, this leads to directly to a civil war. Okay, this speech and this entire scene is the catalyst for the civil war that is to be followed after this. Now we take a look at the characters. Let us go for the character analysis. First up is Brutus. He is an honest and logical person. He appeals to reason. He is politically naive and he leaves after the speech, which is a major mistake, right? Now, his key line in this particular scene is that not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more. So from here we can easily see that Brutus was a good man. He had his beliefs, he had his ideologies, and his action was not out of jealousy or any other negative reasons, but for his love of Rome. But he also do not have proper idea or proper knowledge of politics, because politically he is a novice. He believes that everyone thinks in the same reasonable and logical way as he does. They all can see the vision that he has seen. This was his error. Next up is Mark Antony. Now, Mark Antony was intelligent and manipulative. He appealed to the emotions of the Roman citizen, and he uses irony effectively as well as controls the crowd masterfully. Right. He was a strategist. His speech was extremely well spoken, or he, as we have already learned, that he is a very good orator. So his speech captivated and manipulated the entire Roman citizen rather, in favor of Caesar. And they all started viewing the conspirators as villains who have killed their beloved Julius Caesar. His key line in this particular scene is, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears." This was spoken before he started his speech. Now let us talk about the themes that has been touched in this scene. First is power of persuasion, which we see from Mark Antony. Next, public opinion. The public opinion is actually what makes someone a hero or a villain. Let's say the people of Rome were not manipulated by Antony and they were convinced by Brutus' explanation. Then Brutus would have been perceived as the hero of Rome and Julius Caesar as the villain. But here the opposite occurred due to the public opinion that was swayed towards Caesar. Next is manipulation versus morality. Here the manipulator was Mark Antony, whereas the man with the moral strong ground was Brutus. Then comes honor versus hypocrisy. And finally, mob mentality. So these are the themes that were touched in this scene. Okay. Now let us take a look at the important quotations. See, while writing board's examination for ICSE English literature, quotations are really important. You have to provide 2 to 4 quotations for an answer to get the total or full marks. So here some of the important quotations of this scene is presented. First is not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more. Brutus justifies murder as patriotism by this quotation. Next is, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. This is what is said by Antony at the beginning of his most important speech of this play. Here Antony tries to connect emotionally with the crowd. Next, for Brutus is an honorable man. This is repeatedly spoken by Antony as an irony. This weakens the believability or the acceptance for the conspirators among the Roman citizens. Next up is, you all did love him once. Antony reminds the citizens of the past loyalty towards Caesar. Number 5, this was the most unkindest cut of all, refers to Brutus' betrayal. Like this, when Antony shows the crowd the wounded body of Caesar, he points out the stab that was done by Brutus and says that it was the most unkindest cut because it came from a dearest friend. This affected the Roman citizens the most because they felt like Caesar was betrayed by someone whom he loved. Number 6, here was Caesar, when comes such another. Now by this Antony glorifies Caesar after turning public opinion. Caesar was already a beloved leader among the Romans. Now this again glorified Caesar and made him a tragic hero in the eyes of the Roman citizen. Now let us take a look at the important exam questions that may appear in your board's exam. These are the short answers for 2 or 3 marks, like why does Brutus allow Antony to speak? How does Antony prove Caesar was not ambitious? What is the effect of reading the will, and how does Antony use irony? You may practice writing these answers. See, you can have model answers, but ultimately memorizing any answer would be difficult. So instead, try writing your own answer and practice these answers as a preparation exercise. Here are some long answers for 8 to 10 marks, like compare Brutus and Antony as orators. How does Antony turn the crowd against the conspirators? Why is Act 3 Scene 2 considered a masterclass in rhetoric? And show how mob psychology is presented in this scene. Again, these answers, if you have gone through the video properly, most of these answers have been partially or fully discussed. So you may try to write your answers from the discussion. Now these are some examples of the extract based questions which are very important for ICSE. You may find that in every question paper there are extract based questions. Like you may prepare for extracts from friends, Romans, countrymen, or for Brutus is an honorable man, or this was the most unkindest cut of all. All these extracts we did discuss a few minutes back. So you can answer from the discussion that we made here in this video, or you can come up with your own answers. Now in answers, please include the context, the speaker, and the explanation, what are the dramatic irony that are present, and the character traits. These are requirements for a proper answer which will give you a proper score. Okay. There are certain board writing tips as well. Quote at least 2 to 3 lines in long answers. I have already said that in the previous explanations. You can compare Brutus and Antony in logic and in emotion. You also need to mention the rhetorical devices like repetition, irony, emotional appeal, wherever it is applied. And finally, please avoid retelling the entire story. Right? Many of students do this mistake. They just retell the entire thing as an answer. Please avoid that. Instead, focus on analysis. What you have analyzed from the act or from the scene. Okay, the analysis, as we have discussed in this particular video, try to write your answers accordingly as an analytical answer. Do not try to retell the entire story. That's the biggest error that is committed by the students. So that's it, folks. That's it for today. I'll be again coming to you with a new video of the next scene of this play, of this act rather. And till then, goodbye, take care, and please share, like and comment, and suggest any changes or any kind of requirements that you have of any topic. I'll try to get the video for you. So signing off, DRC classes. Bye bye.